We've action from Liverpool, Chelsea and Celtic. Champions League highlights in half an hour here on ITV1 after the latest ITV news with Mark Austin and James Mates.
Zimbabwe's human traffic. Our undercover cameras capture dictators, desperate victims fleeing his regime. With nothing to lose and no money for visas, thousands are breaking through the border every day. Tonight, a bid for freedom, risking their lives for an uncertain future.
When the Limpopo River is full, they have to swim across. It's wide, fast-flowing and full of crocodiles. You have to be absolutely desperate to take that kind of risk, but these people are.
I'm live on the Zimbabwe border, where tonight we report on the lengths people will go to escape this growing humanitarian disaster. And there's further evidence of economic meltdown here. Cancelled, ITV News has learned that British Airways will axe direct flights into Zimbabwe. We're live at Heathrow with the latest.
And in tonight's other main news, rock-solid Gordon, a new poll puts the PM 8 points ahead of the Tories. Could an autumn election be back on the cards? Our defence, how the McCanns will take on accusations from the Portuguese police. And a risky response. Police in high-speed chases are accused of putting lives in danger.
Good evening from Zimbabwe's border with South Africa, where tonight we reveal the risks Zimbabweans are taking to escape the tyranny and the tragedy taking place on the other side of this fence behind me. These rows of chain links and that spaghetti of razor wire is meant to be a barrier. But to the desperate and the destitute of Zimbabwe, it is a magnet attracting those prepared to risk all they have left, their lives. No one knows for sure how many people escape every day. It could be thousands. For tonight's exclusive report on day 2 of our week of special coverage, we filmed 2 frightened teenagers making their escape. Our Africa correspondent Martin Geisler reports on Zimbabwe's human traffic.
Early morning on a dusty border road, and another group of Zimbabweans are fleeing their own home. They're desperate to leave this crippled country, but they can't afford visas, so they'll take their chances and jump the border fence. Hundreds do this every day. Our camera followed 2 young men making the break to a better life. Edward and Thabo have paid a trafficker £5 each to help them. Now they're in his hands. The instructions are simple. Be quick and quiet. If you're slow, he tells them, you'll be caught. It's your own fault. They walk across the dry Limpopo River and they're almost there. Simon, the trafficker, is an expert. He knows the best routes through the bush and the movements of the South African border patrols. The boys have to trust him completely.
Because I got two people with me. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
He's organised a car to collect them on the other side. He leaves them hiding in the long grass and goes to cut a hole in the fence. And then comes the order to go. Through the coils of razor wire and into South Africa. This border is patrolled day and night by the South African Army, but it's 200 kilometres long, and they can only catch a handful of the hundreds who cross it every day. And South African patrols aren't the only danger the border jumpers face. Here on the Zimbabwean side, the bush is full of bandits. They call them the Goma Gomas. They know that the people leaving are desperate and carrying whatever valuables they can. And in the months when the Limpopo River is full, they have to swim across. It's wide, fast-flowing and full of crocodiles. You have to be absolutely desperate to take that kind of risk, but these people are. Back in South Africa, I found Thabo and Edward living in a shack in a township nearby. They told me they're 18 years old, but they look much younger. They plan to head for Johannesburg and find work there.
Where are you going to go?
In Joburg, Hebrew.
You're going to go to Hillbrow?
Yeah.
You know that's the most dangerous suburb in Johannesburg.
Here some people say it's dangerous. I have never seen it.
Are you frightened?
No.
I have to leave Zimbabwe because in Zimbabwe we are suffering with many things. No food. We are suffering.
There's another one coming.
Driving back along the border, we saw another group climbing through the fence. Most made it, but this straggler was caught on the razor wire. Terrified, he ran back into the bush. He'll have to try again later. Trafficking is big business here. Simon makes £50,000 a year helping people cross the border, a fortune in this part of the world. But when I met him, he told me he's not in it just for the money. He's helping desperate people find a new life.
It's really sad when you cross along the fence. We find them crying, and it's hard to tell a baby to keep quiet.
And also it's dangerous, I guess. If the babies are screaming, you're going to get caught.
That's right, yes.
But still, they flood across this river, carrying what they can to build a new life. A suitcase in one hand, a child in the other. They're frightened, but determined to escape Zimbabwe, driven out by a man-made disaster. They might not know what lies ahead, but it can't be any worse than what they've left behind. Martin Geisler, ITV News, on the South Africa-Zimbabwe border.
Well, Martin Geisler is just a little way from here alongside that fence. Martin, give us a sense of the numbers of people attempting to make this journey.
Well, Mark, it's impossible to put an accurate figure on that, not least because by the nature of what these people are doing, they don't want to be seen, they don't want to be caught, so we can't say precisely, but they're coming through all the time. We've seen that since we've been here, and here's further evidence of that. This place is called the Highway locally because so many people use it as a crossing point. We came here yesterday and this fence was complete, it was secure, it had been repaired, and now look, the border jumpers have been back in the last few hours. They've pulled up this razor wire fence, that was the one you saw them crossing at the end of my report. Here's their next obstacle. 3 huge coils of razor wire which they have to crawl through. The trafficker will have propped this up with sticks, making a tunnel for them. There are cables above their head. They used to be electrified, set to lethal level. Thankfully, they've been cut now for humanitarian reasons. There are 15 metres or so of scrub here. They've got to get up there, through another hole in the fence and into a car. The lucky ones will make it to join the 3 million Zimbabweans already in South Africa. Those not so lucky will be sent home to the life they're desperate to escape.
All right, Martin Geisler, thank you very much indeed for that. Now, among those who have watched with despair Zimbabwe's descent into dictatorship is the former South African Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Earlier today, I spoke to him during a visit he's making to London, and I began by asking if he thought Africa had had its chance and whether it's now time for the international community to act.
I myself believe that the humanitarian situation is so fraught that we would need all the help we can get. It's been deeply, deeply distressing, the kinds of things that have happened to ordinary people in Zimbabwe. And I have said, and I think I should repeat this, that all of us Africans must hang our heads in shame for having allowed such a desperate situation to continue.
Gordon Brown, the Prime Minister, seems to have a conscience about Africa. Do you think he should be doing more on Zimbabwe?
I am glad that you have him at number 10, and I think that he is likely to have been persuaded by the Archbishop of York, and I look to him for more effective intervention. One wants to see especially humanitarian aid. People are suffering abominably.
President Mbeki of South Africa has the real power here, but he's not really doing enough, is he?
Yeah, I am aware of the constraints that he must be acting under, but by now it ought to be clear that the soft approach, quiet diplomacy, has not worked at all, and we want something a little more forthright, a little more categorical.
Robert Mugabe has described you as an angry, evil little bishop. How would you describe Robert Mugabe?
I don't think we ought to descend to name calling. The situation is far too serious, far too fraught, and I don't mind. I mean, if he lets off steam, and I got used to that kind of thing in the old days, and developed the hide of a rhinoceros.
Desmond Tutu there. Well, tonight we can reveal another sign of just how bad the economy in Zimbabwe has become. British Airways will announce tomorrow it is ending direct flights to Zimbabwe's capital, Harare. It says it's not for political reasons, but simple economics. Direct flights to Zimbabwe don't pay, they say. And no wonder. Zimbabwe said today its inflation rate is running at 6,500%. Well, our business correspondent Mark Edo is at Heathrow tonight. Mark, is this really for purely commercial reasons?
Well, British Airways says so. Tomorrow they're going to announce that the worsening conditions that you've talked about in Zimbabwe, that hyperinflation, those spiralling prices, the worsening, weakening Zimbabwean currency and plummeting passenger numbers simply mean that every flight that they do between the UK and Zimbabwe is at a loss, that they're losing money and it's not economically viable. So they're going to stop direct flights. Now, British Airways is the only carrier that does direct flights from Europe to Zimbabwe, and that will end because it just doesn't make business sense.
And do you think other British business interests in Zimbabwe will suffer now?
Well, Mark, what a difference a decade makes. Let's look at Zimbabwe in 1997. It was the second biggest exporter of tobacco. It was the sixth biggest exporter of gold, and it did a lot of business with the UK. UK companies still do business in Zimbabwe, but the environment has changed radically. Let's look at the figures. In 2005, the two-way traffic between UK business and Zimbabwe was about £66 million. In 2000, it was almost double that at £143 million. Now, things may be getting worse for foreign businesses, British businesses in Zimbabwe, because Robert Mugabe has an idea. He wants to force foreign businesses to hand over a controlling stake, 51% of their business, to local businesses. People are saying it's a bad idea over there, but he's not listening.
All right, Mark Edo, thanks for that. That's all from me for now. But coming up later in the programme, in exile, Henry Alonga, the former international cricketer who can't return home. We speak to him and to his father in Zimbabwe. That's a little later, but now it's back to James Mates in London with the rest of the day's news. James.
Mark, thank you. The queues outside branches of the Northern Rock almost disappeared today, and shares in several banks rose after the government followed up yesterday's promise to protect savings with a £4 billion cash injection into the banking system. Northern Rock shares closed at 306p, up 8%. The Alliance and Leicester regained all of yesterday's lost ground, as the government hoped. Its shares closed at 793p, up 32%. And shares in yesterday's other big fall of the Bradford and Bingley are tonight worth 295p. That's up 6%. So confidence returning slowly to the banks, and confidence rising, it seems, in Gordon Brown. One poll out tomorrow puts the Labour lead over David Cameron and the Tories at its highest level since the Tory leader took over. Our own polls suggest the Prime Minister has successfully ridden out the Northern Rock storm. And tonight ITV News has learned that an autumn election is still under serious consideration. Our political editor, Tom Bradby, has the details.
They used to call him McCavity, after the cat who's always absent from the scene of a crime. But since he became Prime Minister, Gordon Brown has been highly visible in every crisis, from the attempted terror attacks on London and Glasgow to the floods, where he travelled to the worst hit areas and pledged aid within hours, to the foot and mouth crisis, for which he cancelled his holiday. But then came Northern Rock, when he wasn't visible for 4 full days. The pictures were embarrassing, shocking even. The headlines, terrible. So Gordon Brown's reputation took a hammering, right? Wrong. According to a survey we commissioned this morning, it has held up remarkably well. Indeed, 66% of people said their trust in him had not been altered by the Northern Rock affair. 9% said it had actually increased, whilst double that number, 18%, said it had decreased. It was, statistically, a small poll, but even so, it seems to suggest Gordon Brown has so far emerged largely unscathed from the crisis. And another poll out tomorrow puts Labour on the symbolic 40% mark. The Tories have fallen 2 points to 32. The Lib Dems are back up to at 20. But the Tories say the implications of this crisis have not sunk in yet.
Well, Gordon Brown is responsible for the arrangements that protect our financial system and the stability of our economy. And on his watch, we've had the first bank run in living memory.
I think we're dealing with international events, things that are happening right around the world. There's been a number of problems in America in the mortgage market that has spread across to Germany, and it's bound to have an effect on every industrial country, and it's had an effect on Britain.
The arguments will rage on, but for the moment, Gordon Brown seems very much in the driving seat.
And Tom is in Downing Street now. Tom, an unexpected boost then for Gordon Brown. Should we all start getting ready for an autumn election?
Well, I think the point is, my understanding is that it is tonight back under very serious discussion in Downing Street. Why? Well, my understanding is that their private polling them is absolutely in line with that Guardian poll tomorrow that puts them 8 points ahead. And they believe that if there is an autumn election, it will be Cameron against Brown, and Brown will win. I spoke to one senior cabinet minister tonight who'd done a ring round of marginal MPs, and he said that they were urging him to go now. The reason, his point really was that when you're asking for a fourth term from the British people, that's going to be a big ask in any environment. And when you've got a clear window, when you are ahead, you need to go for it. Now, of course, having said that, we need to be a little bit cautious. I did my own ring round of backbenchers tonight. One I spoke to gave a particularly nuanced response. He said, yes, he accepted that picture in general, but his worry was that the British people just didn't want an election right now. They were happy with the Brown government. They wanted to see how it panned out. But if they were pressurised into an early election, pressurised to make a decision, they might react against it. So there's an awful lot to put in the pot, an awful lot to discuss. A very lonely decision for Gordon Brown here behind me, but I think it's true to say an autumn election is still under discussion.
How interesting. Tom, thank you. The rise in bank shares helped push up the FTSE 100 share index. It closed at 6,283, 100 points higher. In the United States, the Federal Reserve Bank this evening cut American base rates to 4.75%, down 0.5%. That ignited trading on Wall Street. The Dow Jones closed at 13,739, up an astonishing 335 points. And that lower base rate in America also helped strengthen the pound. It is back above $2, up almost 2 cents. ITV News has learned tonight from McCann family sources of new evidence that they say will demolish any potential case against Madeleine's parents in connection with her disappearance. It relates to the traces of what is said to be Madeleine's DNA found in their Portuguese hire car. Well, Rohit Kachru is in the McCann's home village in Leicestershire tonight. Rohit, give us more details.
Well, after lengthy meetings with lawyers, ITV News understands that the McCanns believe they have a robust defence. It focuses on the hire car, which appears to be the central plank of the case against them. Now, forensic experts they've consulted claim there are alternative explanations for the apparent traces of DNA found in the boot of that vehicle. The McCanns say, Jerry and Kate say that it was used to transport boxes of Madeleine's toys and clothing weeks after her disappearance, which may explain traces of sweat and DNA discovered in that vehicle. And they've been asked by their lawyer to compile a list of the people who use that car, friends, family, blood relatives, and it is a list which includes at least 30 people. I've also been told that the forensic investigations being carried out in Birmingham have yet to be completed, and there's much more for police in Portugal to see.
And briefly, Rohit, there are reports that Portuguese police are on their way to the UK to question the McCanns.
Yeah, those reports come from Portugal. Neither police here or there will confirm that, but the McCanns tell us that they've heard no news of this. In fact, they've had no formal contact with authorities since their return here 8 days ago.
Rohit, thank you. A British soldier has been killed and another injured in southern Afghanistan. He was from 36 Engineer Regiment and has not yet been named, though his family have been informed. He was killed when the truck he was travelling in was hit by an explosion during a routine logistics convoy in Helmand province. An inquest into the death of another British soldier killed in Afghanistan has been halted after it emerged he may have been killed by his own side. 19-year-old Private Andrew Cutts died after being hit by gunfire on August the 6th last year. The inquest has heard the fatal shots may have come from British troops guarding the area, not from Taliban fighters as first thought. And family and friends of the youngest British soldier to die in the country have said their final goodbyes at his funeral today. 18-year-old Private Ben Ford was killed by a roadside bomb in what was his first overseas deployment. With the number of people killed as a result of high-speed police chases rising again, officers were told today to stop taking unnecessary risks. The Independent Police Complaints Commission claims some police drivers aren't following safety guidelines and others are deliberately trying to avoid them. Our UK editor Angus Walker examines their findings.
A chase in South Yorkshire. 4 men in a hatchback desperately trying to shake off 3 police cars in pursuit. Split-second reactions are required. It's high risk and more than likely to result in death or injury. In this case, the driver ended up with a broken arm, 20 months in jail, and a car wrapped round a lamppost. Today's Independent Police Complaints Commission report found that police drivers were taking unnecessary risks with varied tactics and training in different forces.
More people die as a result of police road traffic incidents than any other kind of form of police contact. We think that number can be reduced if the guidance that's given to police officers about how pursuit should be conducted is given teeth and made compulsory.
This weekend, 5 people were killed, the youngest 18, when a car that had been chased then drove down the M4 in the wrong direction. Around 40 people a year are now dying in similar circumstances. Behind today's statistics, the human sorrow. Diane Homer's son Neil was killed when he was hit by a police car doing 100 miles an hour in Oldbury in the West Midlands. He died almost 12 years ago, but the pain is still hard to bear.
My son would be here today if the police hadn't got involved in the chase. At the end of the day, there was no need for it.
But the police say they only need to chase when a car fails to stop. What happens next will always be high risk. Angus Walker, ITV News.
A reminder of tonight's top story. Thousands of people are risking their lives every day by fleeing Zimbabwe through the dangerous border into South Africa. Let's take a look at tomorrow's front pages now. The Daily Telegraph reports the fall in US interest rates. It says the Federal Reserve